What's up, it's ENDYMION, and by now you're well aware that the Star Wars Acolyte discourse has gone full-blown nuclear at this point. Disney is going all in on the series, and the fans are rejecting it in hordes. Now it turns out the lead actress is also a raging racist, and she champions that sadly. Beyond that, we'll look into how even video games are working tirelessly to erase white people from the entire industry, and how this will backfire on these projects in the end too. Firstly, the Acolyte stars Amanda Stenberg, who is half black and half white. Particularly, the white part of her is Danish, which is pretty much as white as it gets. Regardless of this, Amanda Stenberg hates white people with a raging passion and doesn't care if people know about it. Firstly, there was this clip circulating from a YouTube channel called Baby, This Is Keke Palmer, although the watermark in the video originates from another YouTube page called Wonderly, which is kinda confusing, but regardless, this clip has Keke Palmer interviewing Amanda Stenberg, and in it they explain how white people are basically evil. Here, listen.
In the beginning of I Am Legend where he's like, first it was the, or maybe it's another dystopian movie, but it's like, first it was the zombies.
He had to kill that poor dog. You know that, like, that's how they effectively made white people really afraid during that movie, was that they killed the dog. You know what I mean?
Animal cruelty is the one thing I won't allow.
Animal cruelty.
That's the one thing.
What gets them. I think it wasn't until I was older and I could really understand things infrastructurally that I got, oh, right, Hollywood is a white institution. And that means that representations within Hollywood are going to be extensions of white supremacy. And not just in Hollywood, but, you know, in music, in entertainment, and in media. We do put biracial and light-skinned people on a platform and expect that to monolithically represent all black people. But it's another way of, like you said, making white people feel comfortable. They actually can't quite distinguish different shades of black people.
And it's a way to crush down the story.
On behalf of the light-skinned community, it is our responsibility when it comes to, you know, visibility to know what spaces are appropriate to take up or not. And that's a lesson that I've learned. And I'm really grateful because I have a really extensive queer community, and I have many people that I love so deeply around me who share a lot of the same values as me. And I can commune with them, and we can grieve about the state of the world, and we can also decide what we want to do together collectively to organize, you know, whether it's like in a moment like this, if it's going to our local protests or...
As you just heard, Stenberg believes that the entirety of Hollywood, music, and everything else entertainment-wise exists to satisfy white people only, apparently. And that these institutions are white-controlled, and she feels it's her right as a person who is biracial to dunk on those white people and punch down or up, depending on how you look at it. Because again, she's both after all, but the point here is that Stenberg is your typical Hollywood actor in this day and world. The kind of person who says all the right things and champions all the correct causes in order to ensure their politics, ideologies, and ways of thinking are enforced correctly. She also said near the end there, in case you missed it, that she also is deeply connected to the queer community and often organizes protests within that community too. Stenberg is essentially the ultimate woke modern actor, therefore this is another way of saying she's utterly perfect for Disney and Star Wars pretty much. She is openly racist towards white people almost constantly, yet has no problem working for a company where the CEO is a white guy while starring in a show directed and written by a white woman. And this yet again confirms this bizarre dichotomy that exists within the modern era space, where we have people who are fully employed and earning paychecks while also being encouraged to engage in racial divides on purpose as well. This is very puzzling to me, but sadly it is nothing new in today's Hollywood or any other entertainment sector. The unanimous echo chamber that says to denounce white people and that white people are bad is terrible in my opinion. Again, need I remind you, this Amanda Stenberg person is half Danish, and I wonder if she realizes when she openly attacks white people with her statements that she is also attacking her own family as well. The entirety of Hollywood is backwards right now. It's no wonder why so many movies outside of a rare few exceptions seem to be failing miserably at the box office lately. But also that, like many other YouTubers have said at this point too, which is that the concept of the Hollywood star is pretty much dead and gone now. You can say that social media killed the Hollywood star or something else, but the point here is that now more than ever before, we are fully aware of what the stars of Hollywood think of the average working class individual. And it's plain to see, for me anyways, that the collective agreement here is that your existence is not valued by these people whatsoever. And if you're a white person, especially a man too, you're considered subhuman these days. We've reached a weird point in our society where white people are both told they have the most privilege of all other kinds of people, while simultaneously being the victims of racist remarks and ideologies on a frequent basis. You cannot be the most privileged race, as these people claim, while also being the only class of people who will lose their jobs and be excommunicated if they said the same thing about others the way they say about white people. The hypocrisy is through the roof here, and it saddens me to see the absolute state of our media today reaching such a point that people are being encouraged to attack and denounce their whiteness, even those like Stenberg, who is literally half white themselves. How they somehow manage to ignore these truths for narrative sakes is baffling to me, especially since in this interview Stenberg is interviewed by Keke Palmer, another individual who starred in movies like Nope, which is made by Jordan Peele, who has openly stated before in interviews that he never wants to make a movie with a white actor in a leading role. And yet instead of losing his job or something like that, he's championed and encouraged to keep his racist mindset while he works. And again, it's insane because Jordan Peele is literally married to a woman that is, you guessed it, white-skinned. So how can Hollywood be a system designed to uplift and entertain the white people out there while also encouraging the very racist tendencies against themselves too? The simple answer is that this is what wokeness ultimately is, sadly. It is not about simply denouncing your heritage or skin color. Think of it like a virus that enters a computer that is ill-prepared to defend against it. The virus will quickly poison every facet of the computer until eventually it is compromised, destroyed, and eventually made obsolete and unable to function. This is what wokeness is, and for far too many people are not willing to see it for what it is. But instead they brush it off and claim, oh, it's nothing, you're just over-exaggerating, but it's clearly getting worse with every passing year. You can't question anyone these days if they aren't white, or it's labeled hate speech. The same goes with gender or anything else. For these groups to claim they are somehow oppressed while simultaneously being uplifted, protected, and encouraged by every corporation in existence is beyond parody at this point. They honestly think that when they protest that they are somehow the resistance, when in reality, they are the talking heads of the empire instead. And they're so far down the rabbit hole they're completely forgotten what they're fighting for in the first place. They claim that they fight for injustice and equality while spewing the very injustices and equality they protest against. How can you be pro whatever rights while being openly racist and anti-rights of other groups yourself? Make it make sense, please. You can't, but you can try. This is what pains me the most about these sorts of individuals. Amandla Stenberg is like many other young people her age. She's disillusioned and completely lost within the miasma that is social justice. And the fact these sorts of individuals are not only given work, but championed and encouraged to keep doing so is blasphemous on all fronts. There is nothing cute or whatever about this individual. She is a racist, disgusting person that is protected by a monolithic billion-dollar company that encourages her to express her racism for all to see. Even back when she was in another project called The Hate U Give, she said this on national television.
When people watch The Hate U Give, what do you want them to walk away with? Because I know everyone has a slightly different feeling.
Well, I mean, white people crying actually was the goal.
And yet again, like I said, we have this person who is more activist than actor, bending the social rules of modern day to fit her own agenda to benefit her in every regard. There is nothing good that can come from this except more hate and vitriol on all sides. I know people will look at what I do or my channel and they might think I spew hate as well, but there's a difference between criticism and debate versus downright hatred of another person. I don't hate Stenberg, I don't hate black people, or any other kind of person either. But I do think that we are living in a world where it is so evidently clear that there is a bias at hand when it comes to what the people of the entertainment preach versus what they actually do. You can't say that you fight for injustice and equality when you are a racist yourself. This is like saying you fight to protect forests, but on your free time you like to start wildfires cause you like the smell of smoke. It doesn't work that way. These sorts of individuals are being given large platforms in order to spew their maniacal ideologies, and I am sick of it. Thankfully, fans are rejecting the Acolyte, and Disney is going to pay the price, but regardless of what happens here, the damage is already done. And sadly, this sort of rhetoric is being echoed even within spaces like gaming aplenty. Remember that game Concord that looks dead on arrival? Well, the lead artists on the characters within that game had some things to say. Look at this from that Park Place, which is titled, Concord lead character designer believes whites must acknowledge their privileged position and then actively work for equality, also claims the judicial system is white supremacy. The person in question is John Wisniewski, the lead character designer for Firewalk Studios, who is working on the upcoming failure that is named Concord. He believes, like Stenberg, that white supremacy is still something that exists, and yes, before you even ask, John is a white guy himself, because of course he is. Yet another person apologizing for their own skin color. These sorts of individuals are the most pathetic. John also strikes me as the kind of guy who sits in the closet while he watches someone else make love to his wife. But anyway, back in 2020, former Bungie lead programmer Peter Kodvetsky said this via Twitter. Thinking that all white people are unconsciously racist is the same as thinking that all black people are unconsciously lazy. To which Johnny Wokeboy then replied, "This is an oversimplification. The sentiment being expressed is that whites must acknowledge their privileged position and then actively work for equality. It will be hard and confronting work, but if we don't, we're complicit, and complicity allows systematic racism to persist." Peter then said, "It is literally racism to ascribe responsibility to an entire group of people because of actions of individuals that belong in the same collective, especially when that is a collective based on pure random chance and not a conscious decision of its participants. I have never been racist, never been the cause of anyone's disadvantage. I understand that there are racist individuals, and I am not white by choice. Saying I share responsibility with slave owners or with racist cops is literally like saying all criminals are black." To which John then said, "I'm not accusing you, myself, all whites of being Jim Crow racists. I also don't think anyone hearing it should immediately take it that way. Whites in America have always had an advantage in our social economic justice systems just because we're white." I think John kind of proves what Peter is saying here is true. Peter states that just because he is white does not mean he must apologize for things that he has not done or are out of his control, which yes, he's right, he shouldn't have to do that. And for John to spin that around and say that yes, you're right, but white people have an advantage in all of these ways, so therefore we must apologize for being white, just proves what the former Bungie dev was saying originally. There is nothing wrong with being white. You do not need to apologize for things that you do not have an active hand in doing. Judging by Peter Kovetsky's name, the guy is likely Eastern European. I would wager Ukrainian or Polish maybe, and Peter's ancestors, while white, have long been living in systematic oppression too. Eastern European people were killed in hordes during World Wars I and II, and they have been oppressed by other religions for hundreds of years. As a Serbian man, I'm well aware of how Serbians especially were controlled by other countries for hundreds of years. But to the average woke Westerner, one look at Peter or myself and we are instantly seen as the villain. We must be slavers because we are white-skinned. This not only proves that the racial biases of our society have gone completely off the deep end, but that our world these days is built on misinformation and victimhood behavior. None of us, regardless of our skin color, ethnicity, or anything else, should have to answer for what some deem as a crime of the collective group. It's just as Peter Kovetsky said in his tweet, with this same mentality, it would be like saying all black people are criminals because there are black criminals. But we know that not all black people are criminals, the same way we know that not all white people are slave owners or white supremacists. And I think the more we perpetuate these things, the worse they will get in the future. And it's extra hilarious considering that John over here, who's working on Concord, talks about how we must combat racism. Yet he creates designs in the game he's working on that are built upon racial stereotypes themselves. Take Lark for an example, who looks like they're wearing a Chinese rice farmer hat and even have slanted eyes. Nice work, John. You really combated racism here by making a vaguely space Chinese race farmer alien. Way to go, very cool. John is also very evidently another white person who has the white savior complex. Here's more of what he said. Doing nothing and saying, well, I'm not racist, allows it to persist unchecked. We need to acknowledge the advantage we've had and use it to help others pursue equality and justice. That needs to become the new I'm not racist, using your privilege to erode that very privilege. Part of that is humbling myself to listen. People are angry. It's okay for them to yell inflammatory statements. I do it too. I don't think it comes down to the technical accuracy of their rage and whether or not that results in an accusation towards me. It's not about me. John sees himself as the white savior while also convincing himself that he's not racist himself. Yet unlike the rest of us, John only sees people for the color of their skin. He inadvertently proves that he's more racist than the average person out there because he admits that he does see skin color in those around him before anything else. If he didn't, he wouldn't need to feel like he needs to use his privilege, as he puts it, in order to save those that he sees beneath him because of the color of his skin. And this is what I want any woke people watching this to realize and truly take a look at themselves while they're at it. You do realize by saying you have white privilege and saying you must use that privilege to help others, that you are admitting to yourself and those around you that you are by race better than others simply because you're white. You do realize that, right? You are pushing the very racist tendencies you claim you fight against and are actually doubling down in the racial ideologies you claim you aren't a part of by thinking and acting this way. I don't know how else to say this, but if you believe in these sorts of things, you are in fact far more racist than the average person. And I hope you know that truly because you are. And like clockwork, when I'm writing this, I get proven yet again. This time it's Andre Cabrera, who writes for a site called Geeks of Color, which already tells you everything you need to know about him and the website he works for. Don't harass him, but here's what he said recently, which reads, I don't care what white supremacists think about Star Wars. If I ever needed a tweet to solidify everything I literally just said, Andre came in like the MVP of wokeness and gave me the slam dunk I needed. So, thank you, Andre. This philosophy and narrative is being parroted by not only Hollywood actors like Stenberg, but average people who work to make ends meet like Andre, John, and more. These individuals are living in institutions designed to reward them for their activism and victimhoods. There is nothing positive or uplifting about being a racist like these people. They simply hate white people because they have been conditioned by their jobs, schools, private lives, and the individuals around them to believe that when they see a white person, that they are not a human, but simply a monster that must be removed from society. These are the people that are working in your favorite IPs that studios license and paid for by companies you enjoy, and websites that are encouraged to engage in openly racist rhetoric like Geeks of Color. So what is the endgame goal here, you may be asking? What exactly do we do when we're faced with such racist rhetoric? I think you already know the answer, but the truth is that the best thing you can do in a lot of these instances is actually nothing at all. Don't watch their shows, don't read their sites, and don't engage with them at all. Just let people like myself and others who make content do it for you so you can all see the horrible people behind the visage of social justice they claim to wear in pride. Their sites will disappear, their careers will crater, and their wallets will empty. They will get desperate, they will lash out and attack, saying this was all your fault that this is happening. When in reality, if they are looking for someone to blame, someone to point the finger, they simply need but look in a mirror and lay upon their own disgusting faces to see what a racist truly looks like. They are mad because we are winning. They are lashing out because you refuse to budge, and they know that they cannot do this forever. And when everything is burning and they are asking for help, let us all look to them in unison and simply answer, no. Thank you for watching, dear viewer. Like, subscribe, and share if you enjoyed it, and let me know what you think about all of this too. Is white supremacy still a thing? Are these people right? Let me know in the comments. Thanks to my patrons, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.